Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Every week there's more equipment and more screens and everything else. Pretty soon there's going to be a screen behind us that you can see as well.
That actually might be worthwhile.
Oh, no.
No, I think about it. On a nice little mount, I could just, reference things. I think that'd actually be very cool.
I'm Tamara Neo.
I'm Flux Neo.
And this is Neo Mix Live. We're doing this almost every Friday. Not quite every Friday, but almost every Friday.
Sometimes life intervenes. Things come up that you just got to tend to. But the nice part about doing your own show is you have that flexibility. Yeah. The other nice part, though, is all of our live shows. I'm just making sure everything's up. It looks like people are saying hello. I do want to hear about the audio quality because this is not the bane of my existence, but it's one of those things that requires some fine tuning.
That would be me.
So I do want to hear about that. But my point that I was getting to is that by doing a show like this, this is the live portion. And so this is very much in the moment. No real script. We do have plans for each show of various things that we want to cover. But when it comes to, people's lack of availability, just like ours sometimes, Friday night, kids have things going on that you need to tend to. You have things going on, or you just want to go out and have a nice evening of it. We understand that. So what we try to do is ensure that we then take the live show, make that available, but pull out the various segments from each of the live shows so that, say there's something that I do that maybe isn't your thing, but you're very much interested in what Tamara's up to. You can just go to that section. So if you like and subscribe to our YouTube and also, I guess,
We hit 100 people last
Oh,
week.
yes.
100 in 1 month. That was our goal. So.
Okay. So, that's good. Congratulations to us. But,
Go team
if you're into Facebook as well, you can watch our live stream there. We do stream on both YouTube and Facebook. What did I say? Did I say Facebook?
Yeah, you said YouTube and Facebook, which is actually complicated because last week, if you'll remember, Facebook did a great job. Caught the whole thing for whatever reason. YouTube cut us off 20 minutes early.
Yeah.
But
now, mind you, that was also our longest show ever.
No, it was saying, okay, enough, Flux, stop talking.
But regardless.
But each of those 3 segments did record. So again, if you missed the last part of what Flux was talking about YouTube gear, the whole segment itself will be up. And in fact, I chose to break it down into 2 individual segments.
Yeah.
So there's one segment up already that you can go and enjoy that is on the YouTube visual equipment, and then pretty soon next week it'll be on the YouTube audio, which obviously we're still tweaking. And
audio's it's interesting because you can obviously, after we take out the live presentation and take it into production, if you will, as far as video editing, Tamara can adjust the levels, and we make sure that we record our shows, and so we have a lot of flexibility in post-production, I guess. Is that the proper term? We're still learning. Yeah, we're still learning some of the lingo, but regardless, if you are interested in anything that we're doing, and she brought that up, we're happy to talk about it. Please message. Let us know what you think. But as always, we're trying to be very diligent in ensuring that we get the content and video information up for you to look at. This is really something that, you can always want to do something, but actually sitting down, doing it, committing to it, and making it happen, that's the only way you get real experience.
We wanted to do this 6 months ago, and it took us this long to even get it sort of up and running, such as it is.
A lot goes into it, but if you're interested in how we do this, please watch some of our videos there, and I'll persist in getting in depth about the process because it's an interesting one. For me, it's fascinating, but I think for anyone that's interested in learning this stuff, we're learning right along with whomever might take fancy
especially
on
the live streams. I don't think we've had one that there hasn't been some kind of one of those where you go, oh gosh.
Yeah, the live streams.
We can fix it in the videos afterwards.
Yeah, it's definitely real, as they say. Yeah. So,
what are we talking about today?
Enough of the preface. Yeah. We've got 3 topics. Yours actually is first dealing with a craft. This is, what do we call it again?
This is a fabric coil basket. And this is something I've been doing for years. And after
Has it been years
it
now?
has.
Wow. Yeah, it
It
has.
has. We were still in the trailer when I started these, if you remember.
Yeah, true.
So we, I have quilting, and so I have a lot of material, and so my fabric baskets have taken a new turn. So that's our first.
So it's kind of like it captures the leftovers from quilting. Mm-hmm. Very
Didn't
cool.
start out that way, but that's where it is now.
No, it makes sense. So I think you have a video that will get into that. Also, we're going to be talking about our trip to Los Angeles.
Yes.
It was very interesting, and we'll lay more of a preface for that, but Tamara has kind of a compilation video. We're both originally from out west. I went from Arizona to Southern California, back forth throughout my childhood.
I went from Colorado to Los Angeles to Colorado to Los Angeles, back forth.
Yeah, so we both have this kind of hybrid LA/Arizona, LA/Colorado
Interestingly,
experience.
I don't think we were ever there at the same time, though.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a reason for that. But either way.
I was in college.
I was a little
He was
younger.
DJing.
But regardless, we're going to get into that, and we'll lay a foundation for why it is that we even made that trip to kind of return, if you will, to our old stomping grounds.
So what's our last segment?
Last segment is actually something I'm very much into. I want to get into these things that, people sometimes forget they still exist. They're called books. And they have these things called pages in them, and there's amazing information, but I'll explain why I would talk about a book on something like YouTube or digital media, and some thoughts that I have about it that really get into cultural ebb and flow. Digital's king right now. I think there will be a time that people will want to return to the experience of reading books. And so I wanted to talk about some of the interesting things that you can be on the lookout for, since buying books now is very easy. A lot of people are pretty much indifferent to them and trying to shuffle them out of their lives. And if you're smart and somewhat entrepreneurial, you can capitalize on people's disinterest in old books and see it as an opportunity for future growth, selling them or otherwise, or just keeping them as a store of value. So we'll get into that during my segment, but yours is up first.
Okay.
Is there any additional foundation that you want to lay before we watch your video?
No, this is the basket I actually make in that video, so you'll get a chance to see how it comes together. It's pretty quick, pretty easy, a lot of fun.
Very cool. So let me go ahead and get this queued up, and we will watch
The screen. That screen.
No,
that screen.
This is the screen. Yes, forgive me. This is the screen that we're actually going to watch the presentation on. So let me see if this
literal
takes care of it.
There we go.
So when I'm done making a quilt, I've got all these scrap pieces left over. Let me show you what I do with them. I begin by gathering my supplies. I decide whether I want to do a contrasting color or a blending color, understanding that I'm going to have some yellows, so neither of them will be perfect. But in this case, I think this is the most beautiful yellow, I swear it is, but I think in this case the blue's a better choice. I'm gonna grab a clothesline and make my way to the table. So these are all my strips, once I've got them sort of laid out and organized. A lot of fun colors. They are all too wide, however, except for maybe this one. See that length, that width? It's half an inch or so. That's about the width I'm gonna need for the baskets. So I'm going to take the time to go back through and cut a bunch of these up and decide which one of these is going to be the centerpiece, because the baskets all begin with a medallion and it stands out. So probably either going to be the yellow or something really pretty like that swirly that I love so much. All right, doesn't have to be precise either. I always used scissors before I learned about the rotocolor. I did baskets before I did quilting. Alright, but rotocolor is so much quicker than scissors. Okay, here's where we start. This is the cord that I showed you. See how it's got innards? It used to be cotton on the inside, and about 4 or 5 years ago, it's just this nylon. So I pull it out a little bit so I can cut it off. Throw that part away. Pull this back up so that it has like this flat area. Makes it real good to start. Okay, I'm going to start off by sort of folding the first piece over. Okay? Like that. And I'm going to wrap. I'm trying to keep it tight to start off with. Keeping it tight, overlapping. Not perfect, but you'll see when I go to coil this, it's not going to make any difference. So in the meantime, I'm just going to sit here and wrap. Nice and tight. When I get to the next piece, I'm just going to work it in. Now this one, I left a little bit of the selvage and I don't want it there because that outside will show. Now if there's a little bit of selvage that you put underneath what I'm about to do, then it would hide it. Okay, do you see what we did? And I'm overlapping it, and I'm just wrapping with the new piece. Back up a little bit. And again, it isn't about being perfect with this. I'm gonna wrap and make sure my little ends tucked, and then I'm overlapping. Eventually start to just get into a groove. Okay, now when I come to this end, I don't want it to, I'm going to coil this to become the medallion that makes the bottom of my basket. Taking back to this end, I'm just going to turn it in on itself, and I'm going to keep making a little coil. This is what I call the center medallion. It's one of the most, oh see, there's a good example. There's a little piece that didn't get totally tucked in. I'm just going to tuck it in as I coil. I'm pulling on this so that my coil is staying tight, and I'm using these 2 fingers to hold it while I spin. Okay, about the size of a $50, and I'm going to get a big old pen, and I'm going to stick it in so that it goes all the way through several layers and holds. There we go. Now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to do a zigzag stitch that's going to zigzag across the area where the 2 pieces meet, and it'll hold it together. Okay? Back. Here's what I set my stitches to. I've got the zigzag. I'm going to start it off with 5 I might go down to as low as 3.5, depending on how it looks. And 2.5, sometimes 3. Each one's a little different. There's no, there's no science to this. The way I was taught was just to go all over this like crazy, left, right, and otherwise. And that's fine. I generally, you almost have to start that way. But as soon as I can kind of pick up an edge, I start to. Even if I'm sort of working it backwards from how I'm going to work the rest of the basket when I get into it. So let me show you. For me, I'm going to line this side up. This line right here is where I'm going to begin. So I'm going to put it into the machine. I'm going to make sure that my needle is centered right over the gap so that it zigs and zags all the way across from one side to the next. I'm going to set my machine to slow so it doesn't run away with me. Actually, I'm going to back it up just a little bit more. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to turn it as I go. On this initial piece, it is really important to go slow, but you won't have to do this the whole basket. I think that center medallion is done. Now, I sometimes choose to make lids, and lids are just bowls flipped, and they're usually less arched. They're more gentle in their turn, and then I make a handle for them, or I've got handles that I install. So I gotta think about this one, whether I'm gonna make a lid or not, but there's my bowl. It's not too hard at all.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very fun.
You know, it's interesting. I've been watching Tamara do these for years, and I think, at first I was like, years, it hasn't been. Then I remember you made them for my grandmother while she was alive. Family members. Is there anyone who's not with us
Like my
anymore?
quilts.
Yeah. But
I made you a quilt. I haven't made you a quilt. I gotta make you a quilt.
the cool thing is that these, you know, in this one, it's like the same material. They actually have some heft to them. These are like kind of dense. Think about it. It's made out of rope that's been, you know, tightly bound in together. So when you actually feel these, you can put things in them. I remember when Tamara used kind of the same like plasticized material that you would use for like a picnic table or something like that. So it kind of have almost a rubberized feel to it. But the cool thing is you can like make these and put keys in, keep them by the door, put change in, and if you put that plasticized material, you can then clean it so they don't become like germ hubs. Because this is stuff that I actually think about. I'm like,
Ooh, you can be really, really clean.
but if you get the other materials, you can actually clean them up, and they become very utilitarian. But I like them, and it's fun because, you know, obviously you can find cool little
This is
ornamental
something
stuff.
that the woman who taught me didn't do this. She takes actually a little loop and she, you know, creates a little loop there. I fell in love with the knob section at Hobby Lobby and was
Fell
like,
in love. That's
"Woo, idea
kind of
bulb, light
obsessive,
bulb
but-
going off."
Yeah.
So I take great pride in finding just the right handle for each basket.
yeah. No, they're very cool. Very cool. Time-wise, how long did you have to put in to create something like this?
The bowl itself was that video. I ran it, you know, pretty much nonstop, but then cut it up. I'd say that was about an hour and a half for this part.
Okay.
And this wasn't probably but another 30 minutes thereafter.
So 2 hours.
Now I haven't gone through and trimmed and trimmed and trimmed all the little, you know, the little threads, and I generally will do that before I give it as a gift. And that can take a good 15, 20 minutes itself.
Now, didn't you do something to like be juried or whatever it's called?
Yeah, there's the Appalachian Heartwood, I know as, I think it's the Southwest Virginia Appalachian Art Center. Big long name. Heartwood is what I know it as. It's
Beautiful
down,
facilities.
Yeah, down in Abingdon, Virginia. Oh my goodness, if you want anything that's artisan based from this region, they've got it there. They've got carvings, wood, fabrics, you know, yarns, everything that anything could be made in this region or is made by someone who resides in this region, they've got at the place. And so yes, they jury the people who are allowed to be there, meaning you send them their stuff and they decide if you're good enough. And yeah, I've been juried into the Heartwood, the Appalachian Art Center, and I have several pieces there. In fact, it's probably time to send them some more. I was hoping to send them a quilt soon, though.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I was getting the next one queued up, and you'll see on
This
the next
was one
video.
of those weeks where we were just like, we've got a lot of kid things going on right now. We got one
Yeah.
kid going there, one kid going there, one kid's got swim meets, and it's like,
No, I was laughing at the first picture in the
oh yeah.
next video.
He has not even seen this.
Yeah.
This video was finished, I kid you not, maybe 7 minutes before air. I've not watched it all the way through other than watching myself clip. So there's bound to be some small things that are going to get improved by the time it goes up for a permanent.
And moving on from the baskets, let's move on to the next section.
Yes.
So, my daughter, who just graduated from high school, she's our oldest. She's 17. She didn't get to do like a typical, senior trip because of
Or prom, or senior year,
yeah,
or
yeah, the whole dynamic around Corona and all that really just dampened a lot of kids, senior years, and it impacted the class before hers. It impacted her senior class, but she asked us. She said, "Look, can we kind of make up for this? Can we do something special?" And she brought up the idea of going back out to Tucson and to go out to LA, because the kids, none of our kids, I should say, had ever been to Los Angeles before. They'd been to my hometown. They'd been to Tamara's hometown. Colorado, very familiar with, or they're very familiar with. Arizona, very familiar with. LA is its own animal. And if you have visited there, you kind of have a sense that people's temperaments and attitudes are a little different.
actually they're pretty widely varied too.
They are. And depending on where in Los Angeles you are, you can have radically different experiences on a day-to-day basis. And I think it was important for us because, my grandfather, that side of the family is from East Los Angeles, and they've been there for many generations, still have a lot of family there.
I have a sister who still resides there.
Yep.
Spent pretty much her whole life except for college there.
Yeah,
and loves it. Absolutely loves it.
Yeah, our ties to Los Angeles are historical and current. So, it's one of those things that when you grow up there, you kind of have just your sense of your respective community, and you often, I don't know, how do you say, you kind of get proprietary. Life in one part of LA is very different than life in another,
yes.
and your sense of self is sometimes shaped on where you grew up. It's one thing.
And frankly, there's a mountain range that makes a big divide.
Sure.
Are you a valley girl, or are you from the other side? Are you from the beach, or the Beverly Hills side, or the Westwood side?
I was from Hollywood, West Hollywood, North Hollywood, which is basically weird LA. That's the only way.
I was in Venice. I probably identify most with Venice.
But
we lived in
Venice has
Santa Monica.
its
We
quirky
lived in
side,
all
too.
over the valley. So
Yeah. So needless to say, the kids wanted to go see this, and it was kind of one of those things where, you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah, and how long had it been since you were there?
Well, I last left LA. I want to say almost 25 years ago now.
Yeah, it's been about 30 since I left.
Yeah.
Long
So it's been a while. But needless to say, we went out there and took the kids. And I'll have some feedback after we watch the video
This is his very first
about
time
what
seeing
the
any of it.
experience was. But I personally won't ever live in Los Angeles again. I'm very happy in the mountains of
Paradise.
Appalachia.
Yes.
I think it's paradise here. And I think it was very stark to see the difference, especially with my perspectives
how much it
now.
has changed.
It's changed, but then it hasn't. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Certain aspects of it are still the same. So I'll have some commentary after the video, but I do want to see this video because she's worked on it. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to turn into a 2-part video.
Yeah, it is 2-part. It was impossible to do LA in one part. Now, most of it is in this one.
Yeah.
I think I saved Catalina Island for part 2, which is such a beautiful island. It's worth its own part.
Yeah, Catalina was its own experience. But since we're doing this on the live portion, if you're interested in seeing the second half where we go out to Catalina Island, which was wonderful, it was exquisite out there, then please go to our YouTube page, subscribe and like what we're doing there, because you can see the rest of the video. But for the live portion, I think this is really just LA proper. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. Okay, let's come back. I don't know what the
let's make sure it rendered right.
No, it should have.
Sometimes it renders without
I
sound.
think that was technical difficulties with me.
Okay.
Let's see. me do this though. Let me go to full screen. Let me see. Is it not going to do the slideshow the way that I want? Huh. So this is the joys of live programs here. So let me see if I can get this to go live. And no, that is not happy. Maybe this is just an issue with the actual software. So let me just kind of do a quick reboot, but moving back on to kind of LA, and this is beautiful because we can edit every bit of this out.
Except for the live stream. All of our flubs are still on the live stream.
Yeah, the live streaming, you are married to the experience, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's clearly...
Do you want me to go check and make sure that it rendered?
No. I'm actually confident that it's there. I think this is more of just a software issue. So let me kind of navigate this. One thing, and just to kind of tease the next video while this is doing its thing, Catalina Island, if you've never been out to Los Angeles, it is, 25 miles off of the coast of LA? 20 miles.
I don't know. It's hard to say because you're in a boat, and so I can never tell.
Yeah, I think it's 20 plus miles out.
How long did it take us? About 45 minutes to get there?
No, longer than that.
Was it really longer than that?
Yeah, it was.
You take off from San Pedro Port, and you can take off from other ports. They also take off from San Diego and a few other places. But the San Pedro is a straight shot. And if you take the Express, it's this great little, it's actually, isn't it a catamaran boat?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and it just flies across that water. We got to see dolphin while we were...
But also...
But I don't want to give away everything.
No, I understand, but the more important thing is imagine being that close to LA, but not feeling like you're in LA.
Yeah, and that was the one thing.
It was a quaint, small town vibe.
And it felt just like it did 30 plus years ago when I was last there, and I was a kid when I was last there. So it was nice to see, because there was so much about Los Angeles that had completely transformed.
Yeah,
I can say that Venice Beach still felt like Venice Beach for the most part, but most everything else, I had a hard time recognizing and finding where I was, and kind of getting my bearing on things. So.
Okay, I think I'm there.
Let's try it.
So let's go ahead and give this a whirl. Let me switch back over and see if we've got a video for you.
Good job pulling this out like that.
Is that all right?
Yeah, I did good.
Okay.
Is it going to work?
Yeah.
Okay, right here, my old haunting grounds. Flip this around. People set up doing all sorts of interesting things, their art, their jewelry.
ain't having it.
You worship these singers? You worship these entertainers that never died for your sins? But you reject Jesus who created you and died and rose again for your sins? What is wrong with this generation?
So
What'd you think?
I liked it. It was actually kind of funny. One picture I think was interesting.
Yeah, there was one clip that didn't
Oh
render.
no, you're focused on that. I was focused on the gut that I had by the time I got to LA.
He ate 2 meals at every meal because
Yeah.
he didn't want to have to decide between this or that.
Yeah,
So
I
have
just
both.
barely shed that off. Like literally, like about what, a week and a half ago. I think I
and
finally had gotten
Donuts
back.
at every
Oh, yeah.
meal. Every meal.
No, well, but mind you, we got back what, maybe a month ago now, a little
Yeah,
less than a
give or
month
take.
ago. So, we went to Arizona, Tucson. For me, Hispanic food, which I grew up with, is the best in Tucson.
Yeah, it
it
is.
is really, really,
Phenomenal.
really,
Very,
really
very
good.
fresh.
Very authentic,
Not heavy.
traditional. Yeah. So I got there, and it like the first place we found was just an amazing restaurant that was new to me. I'd never been to.
Yeah.
And it just turned into a smorgasbord.
Yep.
It was like, we'll get one of those and get one of those. So the precedent we set with our first meal on vacation
Was try everything.
yeah, try everything. And so what ended up happening at each subsequent meal, I would sit down at new restaurants. I probably should have taken pictures of just the volume of food I was inhaling.
There's a couple.
Tamara did get, obviously that was eating at Little Tokyo at a cute little Japanese restaurant. But you would sit down at the menu and it's like, well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I got to get them both.
Yeah.
And the problem for me is I ate both.
You
It
can
wasn't
eat both.
like any...
And be ready for the next meal as though it just without skipping a beat.
Yeah, we had waitresses who I think were horrified watching me put down food. It was... But I did it well.
You did.
It was delicious.
You did. You
And I was very particular. I was like, no, this is for me. So they need to order now. Because she was just like, okay, we're good. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
I think the Tucson video is already up. It was one of the early things we put up before we even started doing
The live
stream.
show. Yeah.
So
yeah. That was like fresh right after we got back.
Yeah.
So-
And that first restaurant, I think I did a nice little fun little compilation.
oh, yeah, you did. Because I remember the guacamole making and what have you. So,
So what'd you think
Either
of
way.
music? Can I just tell you that putting images to music is so much fun. I'm a former music major, former opera major,
former
and,
disc jockey myself. so-
yeah. So we have this sort of interesting mixture of music in our house, but I've never put imagery to music, and I love it.
Yeah,
I
no,
love
it was cool. Now, when the music took obviously a rock and roll bend to it, that's down on Melrose Avenue, which for me was kind of like my home away from home, hanging out. That's where your very eclectic and peculiar folks end up. But Tamara, I think, was mortified at times. Our daughters loved it. Our oldest literally said, every bit of fashion that I love, I now realize that this is where it comes from. And I was like, correct. Yeah, this is like the birthplace of that kind of fashion creativity if you're into kind of quirky alternative aesthetics. But
You better not have any sensitivities to different kinds of smokes.
yeah, and smells and everything
Because
else.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely interesting. So some of the things that were takeaways. One of the most important lessons, raising your kids in Appalachia, in town/rural experiences, sometimes, they watch TV, they watch media, and they're always thinking, oh, the grass is greener, there's so much to do in cities. And don't get me wrong, there is. And you've just seen a small sampling of all that we were involved with and everywhere that we were going. But doing that for 1 week, I took the kids up into Bel Air, went through Beverly Hills, and said, look, let's pull up Zillow and see how much these homes
Houses are worth.
39 million, 54 million, 28 million. And I was like, now wait, mind you, we're in the hills right now. Mm-hmm. Let's go 15 minutes down out of the hills, and you're literally into wall-to-wall traffic, chaos, lunatics. So I was like, look, no matter where you live, you're still in a massive city, and the city issues, the city problems will always be a feature of life there. Traffic, crazy.
When we went from the valley over to the beach, and it was, as the road, not even as the crow flies, the actual road was only about 16 miles that we had to travel, and it took us over an hour to travel that 16 minutes.
Yeah,
16 miles.
And it's actually worse than that at times.
And it wasn't even the worst time.
So
they were ready to come home.
Yeah, that was the
They
huge
got their
lesson.
feel.
It
Yeah,
was,
they
because
did.
after a week of being there, and we were there 6 days.
Give or take.
Like the day before we were leaving, the kids were like, "We're good.
Yeah.
We're ready to go
Don't
home.
need to see anymore.
No, we're all right."
It
And
would
so
require driving. No, we're done.
for me, that was huge vindication that they've I think realized that we haven't been trying to hide them from the world or keep them away from things. That there is a quality of life that is very special in our rural communities throughout this country, where we are in the Appalachian Mountains, that's to be treasured and cherished. Sometimes you forget it because you're so used to it and you take it for granted.
Yeah.
Go to a major city,
Yep.
and then come back home, and it's a relief to get home, actually, because you're just like, wait, I can just be here.
Yeah.
And there isn't this sense that you're constantly overwhelmed when you don't want to be, just because of the nature of the environment. So it's nice to be able to go and travel, go to cities. There's obviously a ton of great and interesting things you can do, a lot of cultural stuff. But then, you can put it all down, come to your amazing rural communities, and have just this amazing quality of life.
Quality of life.
Cost of living, quality of life, so high. And, here we are trying to interact with the rest of the world. So you have internet, you have cellular, and you can even get on 4G and have your signal scream because nobody else is on it. Relatively speaking. So either way, it was a good trip. Definitely would recommend seeing part 2, Catalina Island. Very cool. It's the first time that I've thought, man, if money were not an object, it would be great to have a little vacation home
Yeah,
out there.
probably be the only place in California we would ever consider living.
Very cute, quaint. And we're saying that about California.
Yeah.
So regardless, I want to pivot into kind of, if you will, my segment here. And it's kind of interesting. I collect a lot of books, and I actually have an interest in getting into eventually selling them. I'm not at that stage right now. I'm clearly focused on...
We have enough books to start selling now.
Well, the point, though, is that...
we have vaults of books
law
right now.
practice, stuff like that, obviously. Raising kids, the idea that I can just sit around and indulge in books all day is a luxury.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's something to what I wanted to be able to point out this evening. Books have kind of gotten, literally discarded in many respects in our society. Don't get me wrong, there's still the big Barnes & Noble, and you can go onto Amazon and get books. But it's qualitatively a very different experience now. You can get onto Audible and listen to books now. There's so much out there that basically takes you away from this kind of good old-fashioned experience. But because people are walking away from this, bookstores are closing. People are kind of liquidating collections.
Mm-hmm.
People pass away. The kids, grandkids don't understand value the materials that their parents have collected, grandparents have collected, their historical significance. And these days, a lot of the time, they're rarity. So I wanted to kind of make a bit of a pitch, if you will, for taking a little time to start to educate yourself on books. I brought just 3 examples. Mind you, I do have literally thousands of books.
Oh my God, he's not kidding.
But
I got to stay with something real quick, though. He also, about 5 years ago, before you were you've always had books, but you've not been into the search and the quest and all that, made fun of me because I still prefer books over the tablet. Can't stand reading a book on a tablet. It's not the same, doesn't feel good. I like a book in my hand, the smell, the feel of the paper.
Let's qualify that slightly. What was the context I was talking about? Law. law materials.
I can't even remember.
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
was
like,
the
I'm not reading
context.
this on a tablet.
When you're dealing with legal reading where I just need certain cases, certain types of information, having the digital version and being able to do searches through PDF documents of certain terms and the like.
I agree with that.
Hugely
I don't
powerful.
think that's what it was.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. You were because I was like, I just need the digital version. And you're like, no. We're getting the books too.
Oh yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't just buy the digital version.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So
no.
I think that was the
Because they're
feature
about
that I
the
was
same
in.
price at that point. They charge you, $300 for the digital, and they throw the book in. Yeah, I want the book.
Well, at a minimum, though, I think that was the context. I've been a fan of books for a very, very long time, and I've had certain books in my life now, 30 plus years, that I still tote around with me and have been all over the world with me. But regardless,
So what'd you bring?
well, I'm going to go over to the specifics, but the main point is start eyeballing books. It is my contention that in a few years, people are going to want to vary their experience. Having the digital is wonderful, but as Tamara's described, something tangible and the patience that's required to sit and read and review materials, it forces you to kind of pause in your day and center yourself in a way that I think people will recognize there's real merit to, just given how kind of chaotic day-to-day life can be for people. So the idea that you can make it almost like a meditation to go get some material, sit down with it, think about it, and enjoy what you're reading in almost a contemplative manner, I think is something that will become in fashion again.
It's leisure time.
So get the books now while their market value is way down and cheap and people will literally just give them to you. Educate yourself on what you do have, and then you'll hit a point where I think you'll appreciate your diligence and foresight, because I think the value of these things will actually start to go through the roof, because how many bookbinders have gone out of business? How many paper companies that specialize in the kind of paper that you need for a quality book?
Show that one for a second. Show the interior cover of that.
Yeah.
The marbling in that paper.
All of this is
the
just
gold
like literally a
touches.
craftsman's sentiment. Now, this one, and it's interesting, is a Bible, but I have a slew of Bibles. That's not the interest here. This one is kind of interesting because of who owned the Bible. And I have a series of Bibles like this. This was from the personal collection of Walker and Fred Kirby. Now, for most people, that may not mean anything. Go and look who these folks are. These are people that are literally titans of industry in this country, and their family.
Kirby vacuums?
No. These folks, they and I pulled up the Wikipedia. So this is about who owned this Bible. And this is just a revised standard version. It's my preferred version, but that's not what I'm here to plug. It was more so who the owner was. People dump family Bibles all the time. And then you start seeing who was the family, whose Bible was that. And it's...
That doesn't sound like that. I mean, that sounds terrible. The family...
Oh, that the family wouldn't care. But for people who love American history...
Yeah, this is true.
It's a gold mine, because there's a lot of information contained in these things. But to give you a sense, the Fred Kirby, he was specifically the CEO and chairman of a company called Allegheny Corporation, which is New York Stock Exchange, 400. These are major players today in the insurance industry and the like. But to give you a sense, the Allegheny Corporation, this is out of Wikipedia, which is kind of funny.
He's reading it on a tablet.
Well, I've not met the book form of Wikipedia yet.
This is true.
So bear with me. But the company was incorporated in 1929. And just to give you a sense, that there was a bankruptcy that occurred shortly afterwards. And then it fell into the hands, the holding company, of a gentleman named Robert Ralph Young and Alan Price Kirby, the father of Fred Kirby. To to give you a sense, Young, Mr. Kirby's business partner, used the company as a vehicle for his vendetta against the J.P. Morgan bank interests. Literally, J.P. Morgan, who had financed the Van Sweringens and managed to defeat them and the Vanderbilts' interests in 1954's proxy fight for the New York Central Railroad. I guess after that fight, Mr. Young committed suicide, and necessarily Mr. Kirby kind of carried on the legacy of the company. Needless to say, once the Kirby family was involved, they grew the company. They had a financial division that they sold off to American Express. These are like huge players in the last century, and really dynamic players even to this day. Their family still is involved with major like I said, insurance interests and the like. This was his, and I guess evidently his brothers. I'm not familiar with Walker particularly, but this is Fred Kirby's personal Bible, and this is all a first edition of the Revised Standard Version. And with the Revised Standard Version, you had two. They finished their Old Testament in 1952. The New Testament was finished in 1946. This is made in America. This is truly a first edition version, but more importantly, who owned it, I think, is the fun part. You can pick up Bibles on eBay or other sources for next to nothing.
Hey, Tracy, how are you? See? Yes. She pointed out that she has her Nana's Bible.
Sure, but here's one that you can pick up on eBay. People wouldn't know what to look for. You buy it on the cheap, wait, let history move forward, and then all of a sudden, books like this become these just rare little gems and finds.
Yeah.
Another one here, and this one's very cool. This one's actually been rebound. It's called Anecdotes of the American Revolution. The gentleman who wrote this kind of has this very interesting history, and I have a little note on that. The gentleman, this book itself was first published in 1822. This is the first edition, but the original cover deteriorated because, again, we're talking 1822.
Look at these pages there.
Yeah, this is from 1822 when it was published. But then somebody who was amazing, and this was done clearly in the late 1800s, rebound it. And there's little mildew marks and things like that, which to me just add a ton of character. But you can see this is literally from the 1820s, where the gentleman, Mr. Alexander Garden, he became a state senator in South Carolina. Now, why is this interesting? You get a lot of literature that focuses in on the Civil War, for example. A lot of history, and you can get books and photographs, and a lot of kind of, I guess authorship has gone into people writing memoirs about their experience in the Civil War. And there's a dearth of material out there that you can hunt up and find. What is interesting about this is imagine someone writing their Revolutionary War memoirs. That's what this is.
Wow.
So it's somebody who fought in the Revolutionary War, who took the time.
American Revolutionary War.
What did I say?
I'm asking the American.
The American Revolutionary War. Yes, the American Revolutionary War. There we go. See, anecdotes of the American Revolution, and then sat down and talked about who he fought with, where they waged their battles, who were generals that he worked with, who were soldiers that he thought expressed exemplary character. It's this amazing read that, he took the time to put out there, but it's something that, clearly when you go through this, you can see that this has seen the centuries. there are water stains in it, but the quality of the print, the quality of the paper, it's resilient to time, even when time is not always generous with you. So, books like this, they're rare finds. But if you know what to look for and you educate yourself a little, these hold value. This will never lose any value whatsoever. When you know what to look for and you're patient with finding these types of books, it's only going to go up in value.
Before you go to your third, is
Yes.
there a favorite book among your collection in terms of value or great catch or?
This one actually may kind of be in that realm. This one's very intriguing. It's called Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time by a gentleman named Carroll Quigley. This is actually a first edition. What's intriguing about this book, you hear a lot these days about, a new world order or a global cabal that is trying to shape global politics, one world government, all of those types of subjects. This gentleman, he was given access to documents and records. And I think I'm trying to recall, I don't know if he got involved with the folks who did like the Trilateral Commission and a lot of these big international organizations. Let's see, I'm trying to think the full breadth. But needless to say, what he did is he got access to source materials for these types of big multinational organizations that you hear a lot about, and there's a lot of kind of conspiratorial discussions about them. He was given an opportunity to go into their source materials, and through reviewing their source materials, then proceeded to write an epic tome
How many pages
about
is that?
the efforts. This is over 1,300 pages. The efforts of these organizations to shape global politics. And who was doing it, the interests that were involved with it. We're talking banking, government. We're talking about corporate structures that were set up, and various organizational strategies to help coalesce organizations throughout the world around a central vision to shape global economic, social politics, and the like. So it's this very, very deep analysis.
What's the time frame of this book?
This was written, the copyright, mind you, again, this is a first edition of it. I think it was 1950s, or was it by the 60s that it was released? No, 1966. When this was put out, everybody was kind of interested, thinking that it was kind of an academic centerpiece, an important retrospective over, the first half of the 20th century. The dilemma is that because he was so thorough, the people who he actually was referencing were horrified to have their activities disclosed, most of whom were still alive. So these people who saw themselves as prominent figures were basically their dirty laundry was being aired out in a way that he didn't think was a problem because they gave him access. But then they didn't realize how thorough and effective he would be at documenting it and articulating the nature of their activities, that as soon as this hit the publisher, and this was published by Macmillan, all publishing ceased.
Oh, wow.
And they ripped it off the shelves. They didn't want anybody to have this material anymore.
Wow. Obviously some copies made it through.
Some copies made it out. Now, he himself, being horrified that his publisher just eviscerated and took away any and all copies they could get, he financed himself to kind of do a second run with what his limited means were. And you have to kind of know what to look for between the bona fide first editions, which were put out by Macmillan, versus his efforts to kind of just get his book out there. because he was very proud of his work.
I'm
He
sure
was
all
very
that work,
proud of-
1,300 pages
Yeah,
of
the fact
writing.
that he was so effective at kind of articulating, and he was a true believer.
Yeah.
He believed in this kind of globalized government sentiment. So he was like, what are you talking about? This is great. The world needs to know about our efforts to control the planet. So either way, very cool story, very interesting book. Who's going to know that, something like this is sitting in libraries throughout America and is still out there? But if you don't know what to look for and you've not taken your time to kind of learn a little bit of history, and this is very topical,
Yeah.
the things that were going on, through World War II, subsequent Cold War, there are players who were behind the scenes. This is the
scene.
story
The setting,
of
right
what
there.
happened behind the scenes.
Wow.
So it's very cool stuff, very unique, and again, I think will become more historically significant with time. So here, just in these 3 books, and I'm a big fan of American history, Revolutionary War, Titans of Industry, Let's Control the World, perspectives. And I'm not somebody who's in the business, but I care about history. And so when you read history and you think about history, do basic things like look up, if you watch a documentary and you hear the names of interesting people. You've got the tablet, you've got the smartphone, go and look and say, okay, they mentioned this historical figure. Is there a book about them that somebody wrote, a biography? Did they have an autobiography in which they themselves discussed their work, their education, their own perspectives? And then always look for the first edition. Hugely important. Look for those first editions and then take care of them and learn about them. Because the cool thing is like any market, I'm a fan of American history, so I'm kind of a buff for that. There are different interests that are out there in publishing and in books in general. And so you find the people that are interested in those things, you can build relationships with them. And when people who want a book are aware that you have one, there's sometimes no lengths that they'll go to try to secure it. So you don't have to have a huge collection, just have a good collection. Put the time in now where getting these things are relatively cheap because nobody cares about books anymore.
And inform your children.
Yeah.
Our
My
children
kids
are well versed on
Yeah.
what stays and what they parse out.
do not get rid of this one. It will only get better. So, you have those conversations, but, think about it for the kids. Here we're taking our kids and telling them the importance of old-fashioned books.
Yeah, we're not like this family that just let this one go.
Yeah, that's
Isn't
crazy.
that crazy?
Yeah, now it could be that, maybe this gentleman had so many things, and when it came to his estate, because he passed away in 2011.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't that long ago. And the family's down in North Carolina, but this kind of stuff was popping out from, I guess, the estate. And, there's nothing wrong with me legally purchasing a book, but when you know the history, all of a sudden it takes on so much more significance and fun. So that's my tidbit about books and why I think you should take an interest in them. Go to your libraries.
So right.
Yeah, go to the libraries. Go to the
Used bookstores.
yeah, used bookstores. Because often, folks don't really appreciate what they have, but if you have an eye for it, you can pick up great deals, keep them, treasure them, and know that they're going to be a great store of value for the long term.
Very good.
So,
Well, I think that was it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
Yep, one more
Yeah.
live stream in the bucket.
Is this number
that
4?
what they say? No, in the bag. Isn't that what they
In
say?
the bag.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
number 4.
I think this is number 4. So it is going to be important that we get feedback.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do, we are up over 100 subscribers now, which was kind of a little mile marker for us. Tell other people. Let them know. Subscribe. And if there are things that you'd like us to discuss,
Tell
topics.
us. Put it in the comments, either on the YouTube or the Facebook. Let us know. What are you interested in?
Absolutely. But I think with that, we're good for tonight.
Very good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
We'll see you.